All right. So let me know when we're live. We're live now? Okay, good. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Boker Tov. All right. So we're going to continue in our scripture readings today. Since I did skip breakfast, I feel much better. I got a little bit extra time in there. Of course, housekeeping woke us up and everybody else, whatever, knocking on doors and people walking in and out of the room and stuff. But I got a little bit more sleep. Anyway, that's not why you're here, to find out about my sleeping patterns. We want to read the book of John. Okay, we're picking up in chapter 8 today. John chapter 8, and hold on. This is not the sheet I want. Okay, so we got 13 readings today. So we got a lot of different readings the way this breaks up today. Almost 200 verses we're going to read, 199 or so. So we got 5 people in the front row. We're going to have to fill those seats up at least twice. Hope everybody's having to see this. It's funny how this gets smaller and smaller some days. People sort of start dragging around. You guys the crowd should be growing as word gets out that this is a great thing. So we should have the room just packed. Amen. Amen. Okay, just a reminder that we have the wedding this afternoon. And so that's going to be most of the activity this afternoon. So we might need anybody wants to kind of come around and help to set up for the wedding. We'll be doing that during the afternoon. The wedding will take place probably around 4:30 or so. Okay? Somewhere in that range. 4:30, somewhere in that range. All right. Okay. So as we begin in our readings, we're going to start off with prayer. Mr. Nate's hand went right up first. He paid attention when I said all the men's hands are supposed to go right up. Go put us in prayer.
Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, Creator of the universe. Thank you for allowing us to take breath again this morning, to get up and fellowship in your word, in Yeshua, in your Torah. Thank you that you have allowed us to recognize who you are through the Son. And we pray today, Abba, that your blessing would be upon the reading and those who are reading and all of those who are listening. We thank you and praise you for this day and this wonderful feast time that you have commanded us to do. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen, amen. Let me get this out of the way. All right. Dawid, come on up. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Dawid, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Dawid's going to start us off in John chapter 8, reading verses 1 through 15.
And Yeshua went to the Mount of Olives, and at dawn he came again into the set-apart place. And all the people were coming to him, and having sat down, he was teaching them. And the scribes and Pharisees brought to him a woman caught in adultery. And having set her in the midst, they said to him, Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the Torah, Moshe commanded us that such should be stoned. What then do you say? And this they said, trying him, so that they might accuse him. But Yeshua, bending down, wrote on the ground with the finger, as though he did not hear. But as they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, He who is without sin among you, let him be the first to throw a stone at her. And bending down again, he wrote on the ground. And when they heard it, being reproved by their conscience, went out one by one, beginning from the older ones, until the last. And Yeshua was left alone, and the woman standing in the middle. And Yeshua, straightening up, and seeing no one but the woman, said to her, Woman, where are those accusers of yours? Did no one condemn you? And she said, No one, Master. And Yeshua said to her, Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. Therefore Yeshua spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall by no means walk in darkness, but possess the light of life. The Pharisees therefore said to him, "You bear witness about yourself. Your witness is not true." Yeshua answered and said to them, "Even if I witness concerning myself, my witness is true, for I know where I came from and where I am going. But you do not know where I come from, where I come, or where I go. You judge according to the flesh. I judge no one."
All right, thank you. Next reader. We've got Wayne. "You blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May you bless Wayne, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen." Okay, take us from verse 16 to 30.
But even if I do judge, my judgment is true, because I am not alone in it, but I and the Father who sent me. And in your Torah also it has been written that the witness of the two men is true. I am one who witnesses concerning myself, and the Father who sent me witness concerning me. Therefore they said to him, "Where is your Father?" Yeshua answered, "You know neither me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would have known my Father also." These words Yeshua spoke in the treasury, teaching in a set-apart place, and no one laid hands on him, because his hour has not come yet. Therefore Yeshua said to them, "Again, I am going away, and you shall seek me, and you shall die in your sin. Where I go, you are unable to come." Then the Yehudim said, "Shall he kill himself because he says, 'Where I go, you are unable to come'?" And he said to them, "You are from below, I am from above. You are of this world, and I am not of this world. Therefore I say to you that you shall die in your sins. For if you do not believe that I am he, you shall die in your sins." Then they said to him, "Who are you?" And Yeshua said to them, "Altogether that which I even say to you, I have much to say and to judge concerning you. But he who sent me is true. And what I heard from him, these words I speak to the world. They did not know that he spoke to them of the Father." So Yeshua said to them, "When you lift up the Son of Adam, then you shall know that I am he, and that I do none at all of myself, but as my Father taught me, these words I speak. And he who sent me is with me. The Father has not left me alone, for I always do what pleases him." As he was speaking these words, many believed in him.
Amen, amen. Thank you, Wayne. Okay, next up. What was your first name? Mike. All right, we have Mike. "He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Mike, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen." Okay, Mike's going to take us from verse 31 to 45.
So Yeshua sent to those Yehudim who believed in him, "If you stay in my word, you are truly my taught ones, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." They answered him, "We are the seed of Abraham, and have been servants to no one at any time. How do you say, 'You shall become free'?" Yeshua answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone doing sin is a servant of sin. And the servant does not stay in the house forever, and the son stays forever. If, then, the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. I know that you are the seed of Abraham, but you seek to kill me, because my word is no place in you. I speak what I have seen with my Father, and you do what you have heard from your father." They answered and said to him, "Abraham is our father." Yeshua said to them, "If you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has spoken to you the truth, which I have heard from Elohim. Abraham did not do this. You do the works of your father. Then they said to him, we were not born of whoring. We have one Father, Elohim. Yeshua said to them, if Elohim were your father, you would love me, for I have come forth from Elohim, and I am here. For I have not come to myself, but he sent me. Why do you not know what I say? Because you are unable to hear my word. You are of your father the devil, and the desires of your father you wish to do. He was a murderer from the beginning and has not stood in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks the lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. And because I speak the truth, you do not believe me.
Amen. Amen. Okay, next up, James. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless James, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, James is going to take us from verse 46 to the end of chapter 8.
Who of you proves me wrong considering sin? And if I speak the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of Elohim hears the words of Elohim. Therefore you do not hear, because you are not of Elohim. The Yehudim answered and said to him, do we not say well that you are a Samarini and have a demon? Yeshua answered, I do not have a demon, but I value my Father, and you do not value me, and I do not seek my own esteem. There is one who is seeking and is judging. Truly, truly, I say to you, if anyone guards my words, he shall never see death at all. The Yehudim said to him, now we know that you have a demon. Abraham died and the prophets, and you say, if anyone guards my word, he shall never taste death at all. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who died and the prophets died? Whom do you make yourself? Yeshua answered, if I esteem myself, my esteem is none at all. It is my Father who esteems me, of whom you say that he is your Elohim. And you have not known him, but I know him, and if I say I do not know him, I shall be like you, a liar. But I do know him, and I guard his word. Your father Abraham was glad that he should see my day, and he saw it and did rejoice. The Yehudim therefore said to him, you are not yet 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham. Yeshua said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham came to be, I am. Therefore they picked up stones to throw at him. But Yeshua was hidden and went out from the set apart place, going through the midst of them, and so passed by.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Okay, next reader. Okay, we have George. Wait, I forgot my sheet. I forgot to know where I'm presenting you. Verses 1 through 15. Okay. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless George, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, George is going to take us into chapter 9 and read the first 15 verses.
And passing by, he saw a man blind from birth. And his taught ones asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he should be born blind? Yeshua answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of Elohim might be made manifest in him. It is necessary for me to work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one is able to work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Having said this, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva and applied the clay to the eyes of the blind man. And he said to him, go and wash in the pool of Shiloah, which means sent. So he went and washed and came seeing. Therefore the neighbors and those who saw him before that he was blind said, "Is this not he who was sitting and begging?" Others said, "This is he." Others said, "He is like him." He said, "I am." So they said to him, How were your eyes opened?" He answered and said, "A man called Yeshua made clay and applied it to my eyes and said to me, 'Go to the pool of Shiloah and wash.' And I went and washed, and I received sight." And they said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I do not know." They brought to the Pharisees the one who was once blind. Now it was Sabbath when Yeshua made the clay and opened his eyes. Therefore the Pharisees who asked him again how he had received his sight, he said to them, "He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see."
Amen. Amen. Want to just do a quick change out on this one? Okay. Okay. He who blessed our fathers. Whoops, I forgot to bring my sheet up again because we were switching batteries and microphones here. 16 to 29. Okay, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Pat, who's come to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Pat's going to take us from verse 16 to 29.
Therefore some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from Elohim, because he does not guard the Sabbath." Others said, "How is a man who is a sinner able to do such miracles?" And there was a division among them. So they said to the blind one again, "What do you say about him, because he opened your eyes?" And he said, "He is a prophet." However, the Yahudim did not believe concerning him, that he had been blind and received his sight, till they called the parents of him who had received his sight. And they asked them, saying, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see?" His parents answered them and said, "We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind. But how he now sees, we do not know, or who opened his eyes, we do not know. He is of age, ask him, he shall speak concerning himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Yahudim, for the Yahudim had already agreed if anyone confessed that he was Messiah, he should be put out of the congregation. Because of this, his parents said, "He is of age, ask him." So the second time they called the man who was blind and said to him, "Give esteem to Elohim. We know that this man is a sinner." Then he answered and said, "Whether he is a sinner, I do not know. I only know that I was blind, now I see." And they asked him once more, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" How far do I go? 29. He answered them, "I have told you already, and you did not hear. Why do you wish to hear it again? Do you wish to become his taught ones too?" Then they abused him and said, You are his taught ones, but we are taught ones of Moshe. We know that Elohim has spoken to Moshe, but this one we do not know where he is from.
Amen. Amen. All right, thank you, Pat. Want to switch them back out again? I don't mind. No, just hold on to that one. All right, Mark. Excuse me. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Mark, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Mark's now going to take us from verse 30 to 41. It's the end of chapter 9.
The man answered and said to them, "Why, this is a wonder. You do not know where he is from, yet he opened my eyes. And we know that Elohim does not hear sinners, but if anyone fears Elohim and does his desire, he hears him. From of old it has never been heard that anyone opened the eyes of one who was born blind. If this one were not from Elohim, he could have done none at all. They answered and said to him, you were completely born in sins, and are you teaching us? And they cast him out. Yeshua heard that they had cast him out, and when he had found them, he said to him, do you believe in the Son of Elohim? He answered and said, who is he, Master, that I might believe in him? And Yeshua said to him, you have both seen him, and he who speaks with you is he. And he said, Master, I believe, and bowed before him. And Yeshua said, for judgment I have come into this world, that those not seeing might see, and that those seeing might become blind. And those of the Pharisees who were with him heard these words, and said to him, are we blind too? Yeshua said to them, if you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you say, we see, therefore your sin remains.
Amen. Amen. You know, I keep doing that. I keep coming up here without the paper so I know where we're going. I need to leave a copy up here is what I need to do. All right, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Nate, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. And for Nate's sake, we'll say, go Team Blue.
Amen.
There's a baby announcement coming, and we just don't know what it is yet, so I'm on Team Blue too, by the way. There we go. Okay. Nate's going to read us chapter 10, verses 1 through 13.
Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter through the door into the sheepfold, but climbs up by another way, that one is a thief and a robber. But he who enters through the door is the shepherd of the sheep. The doorkeeper opens for him, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he has brought out his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. And they shall by no means follow a stranger, but shall flee from him, because they do not know the voice of strangers. Yeshua used this figure of speech, but they did not know what he had been saying to them. Yeshua therefore said to them again, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. Whoever enters through me, he shall be saved, and shall go in and shall go out and find pasture. The thief does not come except to steal and to slaughter and to destroy. I have come that they might possess life, and that they might possess it beyond measure. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. But the hireling, and not being a shepherd, one who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf snatches the sheep and scatters them. Now the hireling flees because he is a hireling and is not concerned about the sheep. To 14, 13?
And you're good. Amen. Thank you. All right, Amy. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Amy who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Amy's going to take us from verse 14 to 30.
I am the good shepherd, and I know mine, and mine know me, even as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have which are not of this fold, I have to bring them as well, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one flock, one shepherd. Because of this the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to receive it again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to receive it again. This command I have received from my Father. Again, there came a division among the Yehudim because of these words, and many of them said, He has a demon and is mad. Why do you listen to him? Others said, These are not the words of one possessed by a demon. Is a demon able to open the eyes of the blind? At the time the Hanukkah came to be in Jerusalem, and it was winter. And Yeshua was walking in the set-apart place in the porch of Shalomah. So the Yehudim surrounded him and said to him, "How long do you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, say to us plainly." Yeshua answered them, "I have told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness concerning me, but you do not believe because you are not of my sheep, as I said to you. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give them everlasting life, and they shall by no means ever perish, and no one shall snatch them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one."
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Ivan. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Ivan who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, amen. So you're going to take us now from verse 31 to the end of chapter 10.
Again the Yehudim picked up stones to stone him. Yeshua answered them, "Many good works I have shown you from my Father. Because of which of these works do you stone me?" The Yehudim answered him, saying, "We do not stone you for a good work, but for blasphemy, and because you, being a man, make yourself Elohim." Yeshua answered them, "Is it not written in your own Torah, I said, you are Elohim?" If he called them Elohim, to whom the word of Elohim came, and it is impossible for the scripture to be broken, do you say of him who the Father sent apart and set into the world, "You are blaspheming, because I said, I am the son of Elohim"? If I do not do the works of my Father, do not believe me. But if I do, though you do not believe me, believe the works, so that you know and believe that the Father is in me, and I in him. Therefore they were seeking again to seize him. But he went forth out of their hand, and went once more to the other side of the Yarden, to the place where Yochanan was immersing at first, and there he stayed. And many came to him and said, "Yochanan indeed did no sign, yet all that Yochanan said about this man was true." And many believed in him there.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Okay, I've got 3 more spots and nobody in the seats. Okay, Bob, come on up. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Bob, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Bob's going to take us into chapter 11 and read verses 1 through 20.
And a certain one was sick, Eleazar, from Beth-an, the village of Miriam and her sister Martha. Now it is Miriam who anointed the master with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Eleazar was sick. Therefore the sisters sent to him, saying, "Master, see, he whom you love is sick." But Yeshua heard it, and he said, "This sickness is not unto death, but for the esteem of Elohim, so that the Son of Elohim might be esteemed by it." Now Yeshua loved Martha and her sister and Eleazar. Therefore, when he heard that he was sick, then indeed he stayed at the place where he was 2 more days. Then after this he said to the taught ones, "Let us go back to Yehuda." The taught ones said to him, "Rabbi, the Yehudim were there, but now seeking to stone you. And are you going to go back there?" Yeshua answered, "Are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone who walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him." He said this, and after that he said to them, Our friend Eleazar has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to wake him up. Therefore the taught one said to him, Master, if he has fallen asleep, he shall recover. But Yeshua had spoken about his death, whereas they thought that he had spoke of taking rest in sleep. So then Yeshua said to them plainly, Eleazar has died, and for your sake I'm glad I was not there, in order for you to believe, but let us go to him. Thomas, who was called the twin, then said to his fellow taught ones, Let us also go, so that we can die with him. Therefore Yeshua arrived. He found that he had already been 4 days in the tomb. Now Beth Anna was near Jerusalem, about 15 stadia away. And many of Yehudim had come to Martha and Miriam to confront them concerning their brother. Martha, then she heard that Yeshua was coming, met him, but Miriam was sitting in the house.
Amen. All right. Next up, Christine. Thank you, Bob. Come on this side. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Christine, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Christine's going to take us from verse 21 to verse 40.
Martha then said to Yeshua, Master, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you might ask of Elohim, Elohim shall give you. Yeshua said to her, Your brother shall rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Yeshua said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he dies, he shall live. And everyone that is living and believing in me shall never die at all. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Master, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of Elohim, who is coming into the world. And having said this, she went away and called her sister Miriam secretly, saying, The teacher is here, and he calls you. When she heard, she rose up quickly and came to him. And Yeshua had not yet come into the village, but was in the place where Martha met him. Therefore the Yehudim who were with her in the house and were comforting her, when they saw that Miriam rose up quickly and went out, followed her, saying, She is going to the tomb to weep there. Miriam, therefore, when she came where Yeshua was and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying to him, Master, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Yeshua, therefore, when he saw her weeping, and the Yehudim who came with her weeping, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled, and said, Where have you laid him? And they said to him, Master, come and see. And Yeshua wept. The Yehudim therefore said, See how he loved him. And some of them said, Was this one who opened the eyes of the blind? Not also, turning the page. Not also able to prevent this one from dying? Yeshua, therefore, again groaning in himself, came to the tomb. Now it was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Yeshua said, Take away the stone. Martha, the sister of him who had died, said to him, Master, already he smells, for it is 4 days. Yeshua said to her, Did I not say to you that if you believe, you shall see the esteem of Elohim? So they took away the stone where the dead man was laid, and Yeshua...
No, you were right to stop there. Sorry, I was writing something. Okay, good. Stopping at verse 40 was good. Thank you. Awesome. All right, Candace, come on up. Okay, and Candace is going to be our last reader. Okay, you want to read out of this one or the big one? Big one. Okay, then I have to turn the page. Hold on. Because people have been reading out of their own, so we haven't been having the pages turned. Hold that 1 second. Okay, I think that's good. All right, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Candace, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Candace is going to take us from verse 41 to the end of chapter 11. So from verse 41 to the end of the chapter.
So they took away the stone where the dead man was laid, and Yeshua lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me, and I know that you always hear me, but because of the crowd standing by, I said this in order that they believe that you sent me. And when he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, Eleazar, come out. And he who died came out, bound feet and hands with wrappings, and his face was wrapped with a cloth. Yeshua said to them, loosen them and let him go. Therefore, many of the Yehudim who had come to Miriam and had seen what Yeshua did believed in him. But some of them went away to the Pharisees and told them what Yeshua did. So the chief priest and the Pharisees gathered a council and said, what shall we do? Because this man does many signs. If we let him alone like this, they all shall believe in him, and the Romans shall come and take away from us both our place and nation. And one of them, Quapa, I can't say that name, Caiaphas, being high priest that year, said to them, you know naught, neither do you consider that it is better for us that one man die for the people that the entire nation should perish. But he did not say this from himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Yeshua was about to die for the nations, and not for the nation only, but to gather together into one the children of Elohim who were scattered abroad. So from that day on, they plotted to kill him. Yeshua therefore no longer went openly among the Judean, but went from there into the country near the wilderness to the city called Ephraim, and remained there with his taught ones. Now the Pesach of the Judean was near, and many went from the country up to Jerusalem before the Pesach to set themselves apart. And so they were seeking Yeshua and spoke among one another, standing in the set-apart place. What do you think? Is he not coming to the festival at all? And both the chief priest and the Pharisees had given a command that if anyone knew where he was, he should disclose it in order for them to seize him.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Candace. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to put this. Okay, so I need some of the guys who are going to walk around. Dawid, are you walking around the mic? Here's one. Thank you.
Got anybody else?
Okay, the other mic, we need a second walker. Wayne, you want to grab this mic? All right, thank you to all you readers. Thank you for all of you here who are participating. I'll tell you what, it's one thing to read the word, it's another thing to have people read it out loud, and you sit there and you're writing and you're listening and you're paying attention to the story being read. It's just a fabulous thing. You know, that's just great. Okay, so as what we've been doing is, and as our tradition is with this reading situation, is that we now have a Midrashic type discussion. Okay, we try to do it chronologically from chapter 8 through chapter 11. And, but I'm going to begin, and I'm going to sort of share something with you first. That we just take this, please, and put it on the table. So I want to share something first from chapter 8 in the beginning, the first 11 verses. Because how many of you, and I think probably most of you, but not all of you, especially online, have heard me teach about the woman caught in adultery? Okay, hands down. A better question. How many of you have not heard that? Okay, so let's go ahead and go through this process real quickly here, because I think it's sort of like a little mini teaching that makes sense as part of this Midrash. So we have at the beginning of chapter 8, this woman that they say was caught in adultery, and they bring her to Yeshua. And then they are looking to see his response. Apparently a crowd forms. They've got rocks at the ready, and if you've ever been to Israel, that's not a problem. They're everywhere. Finding a rock to throw is not an issue at all. And so they're all ready to have this woman stoned, And then Yeshua's drawing on the dirt or something's going on there. And he says, whoever is without sin, throw the first stone. The older, wiser ones drop their stones and walk away, and then the younger ones leave as well. And we sit here wondering what's going on. And actually, probably we don't sit here wondering what's going on, because after all, our wonderful pastors and Sunday school teachers told us this was Messiah's tremendous mercy. Isn't that what we all were told? Okay, this is so we could see his love and compassion and mercy on this woman. Okay, so we have a couple of problems with that. Okay, the first problem is, if she was caught in adultery, that's a commandment breaking, isn't it? That's actually one of the top 10. That's a big one. There are no big ones. They're all the same. But it's listed in the top 10, the one we get called the 10 Commandments. And so they would be actually saying that in his compassion in letting her go, that he was overriding the Torah. Would that not also be what they were teaching you? Okay. But notice that everywhere we read, what does he say? I only do and always do what my Father says. I have no authority of myself. Isn't that what he said? So would the son in a rebellious nature come and override what was said in the Torah? No. Okay, no. Okay, so we have to understand the problem is Torah. The problem is that the New Testament, when being filtered through Christianity by people who don't understand Torah at all, miss the incredible message of what's going on in John chapter 8. Now, first of all, just so you understand, we're not even sure that this John chapter 8 piece belongs there or doesn't belong there, because in the Peshitta, in the oldest Aramaic, it doesn't exist. Okay, so we just got to kind of throw that out there. But I like that it exists because it makes a really great point if you understand the point. The point here is that Yeshua absolutely is adhering to Torah. The opposite of what Christianity would teach you. Okay, so here's the situation. We have a woman caught in adultery. So your first question should be asked of yourself is, what is the Torah regarding adultery? So what is the Torah regarding adultery? What are some of the things that we know about someone being caught in adultery? Okay, hold on. You need both him and her. Okay, so did they bring him with her? No. Okay, so that's strike one. You need both of them. See, the problem is that people don't spend a whole lot of time looking through the Old Testament to understand what the laws are. Okay? Okay, I just want to make sure, let's see, if I got the right verse here. Give me 1 second. I'm going to read you some of the Tanakh verses that are at issue here. I just want to turn to them because I don't think I put them in the right order in my notes, but just so I have them open. Okay. And 17. Okay. Okay. So we know that you need both of them. So it says she was caught in the very act, right? So what, is there a naked guy running around the area, but like they couldn't catch this guy? I mean, just think about it. They were caught in the act, so they were doing what they were doing, and somehow they grabbed her and didn't grab him? That's kind of hard to believe. Okay, so Yeshua's sitting there listening to them. They bring the woman, stand her in front of him. And so, strike one, they only brought her. What else do we know about adultery? Who are they supposed to bring her to? The judge or the priest. Because the judges and the priests, or the king if there was a king, that would be the only people to bring her to, because that's what Scripture tells you. You have to bring her to the right authority to make judgment. Remember, we talked about this a lot over the last day or two, that you can't anybody just can't make judgment. In other words, render a judging, like a sitting on a judgment seat and saying, I render you guilty or not guilty. Okay, we use judgment to decide whether or not to be involved in something or not, but to judge a matter of guilt, only certain people have that authority. Did Yeshua, was he the king? Not yet. Was he the judge? No. He said, I didn't come to judge. Okay, was he a priest? No. Okay, so he wasn't any of those things yet. Okay, now he will be judge, priest, king, all of it. But he wasn't at this point. Okay, so they brought her by herself. They didn't bring her to the right place. That's strike two. Now, what else do we know about adultery? What's the penalty for adultery? Stoning. Okay, they got that part right. or at least Yeshua said, whoever's without sin, throw the first stone. But see, that's the key phrase in the whole thing. The key phrase in this whole thing. Now, Christianity embraces that phrase too for the totally wrong reasons. Because they'll say, well, since none of us is perfect and without sin, how could we possibly throw a stone? Well, then nobody would ever get judged for anything. And all crime would just happen everywhere. So when he said he was without sin, what was he talking about? So what did you need in order to find somebody guilty? 2 or 3 witnesses. Okay, and what happens if the witness is a false witness? What was going to happen to that person gets done to the false witness. In other words, if there were false witnesses involved in this, they would get stoned. So Yeshua was saying, as badly translated now finally into English, whoever is out there is a true witness. Well, now, by the way, what did the true witnesses get to do when it came to adultery? Throw the first stone. See, if you don't know the Torah, you don't know what's really going on there. So when he said, whoever's without guilt, you get to throw the first stone, he's going back to the witnesses issue. Okay, you have this in Leviticus 20. You've got this in Deuteronomy 19 and Deuteronomy 17. You've got these laws. Just look them up regarding adultery. I'm not going to go there now because I want to save time. We've got a lot more to talk about in these couple of chapters we read. But just realize this. So here he is. He's writing in the dirt. And he's ignoring them. And finally he looks up. And he says, well, see, now that what we have to remember is always in the interactions with Yeshua and these guys is what? What are they attempting to do? Trick him for what purpose? To discredit him. Okay? To say he's a false teacher, to say that he's a false Messiah, to say that he doesn't know the law, that he's against the law, he breaks the law, something. Remember, all through these chapters, he does things on the Sabbath. They want to accuse him of breaking the Sabbath. They have these things going on. It's all about discrediting him, shaming him in public so that people would stop following him. And so this is no different than the other times. Now, some of the times it says, well, the Pharisees actually came to test him or to try him. So we know what they were doing. This time it doesn't say that as clearly. It says that he came to this place and the scribes and Pharisees brought a woman to him. And so, but we know that that's been the relationship. So he's sitting there writing in the dirt, probably thinking, oh, when are you guys going to give up, you know? Okay, you want to play, we'll play. So some people have speculated, what's he writing in the dirt? Well, of course he's writing all their sins. Well, there's Torah instruction that says that we don't expose and embarrass and shame people in public. We call this Lashon Hara, okay, or evil speech, and that includes that exposing it in writing form or some other form. So no, he was not probably writing their sins on the dirt, because it wasn't about them being sinless or not. That's Christianity thinking, right? Christianity teaches you this is all about, because they were sinners, they couldn't throw the stone. Well, it had nothing to do with that. It's because they were false witnesses that they couldn't throw the stone. This woman had done nothing, probably. That's why, by the way, she's still standing there when they all left. If she had been guilty, she'd have run as fast as she could. She was standing there because probably these guys said to her, look, you stand right there. You don't do anything. Don't worry. We're not going to do anything to you. We're trying to get him. Now they all left, and she didn't know what to do. She was probably petrified. Women did not quite have the level of equality we have today. Okay, the women in those days, if the men said, you stand there, and, you know, a big group of men had put her there, she was not going anywhere. But trust me, if that woman was guilty, she'd have probably ran as fast as she could as soon as everybody started leaving. But she stood there. And so he looked at her like, why are you standing there? And so let's understand what happens after this. Okay, so she's standing there, he's writing in the dirt. What is he probably writing? I don't know. How about when there's adultery, we need 2 witnesses, and you're supposed to bring her to the judge, and he's probably writing out the law regarding. That's why the older ones who knew the law were sitting up in the front there, saw what he was doing, was like, oh man, he got us again. This guy's good. Man, this guy's good. And that's why they dropped their rocks. Now, some of the younger ones leave later because they just showed up for a stoning. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't care. Okay? It was sort of the mob mentality. They just showed up because there was a crowd showing up and picking up rocks. You see this even today in all countries when things start happening, riots start happening. Children and teenagers and adults who really don't even have a clue what's going on get involved because they get caught up in the emotional release of just getting violent. And so, but the older ones, it says they left first. Okay, the older ones, it says they figured it out, they dropped their rocks and they walked away. So then, the crowd is gone, and Yeshua straightening up and seeing that no one but the woman, he said to her, "Woman, where are your accusers?" See, that's another part of the clue here. Where are the accusers? Where are the witnesses against you? Oh, there aren't any. Well, then you must be okay. Because I can't judge you, and nobody can judge you guilty without witnesses. So there are no accusers. He said, well, he says, did no one condemn you? She said, no one, Master. Remember, now, that's part of it also. When he was asking for he was without guilt, he was asking for those who would condemn, those who would be the witnesses. He said, did no one do it? And no, we didn't see anybody do it. He challenged them to stand up and witness. He also showed them, I know the rules. If you're lying, we're going to stone you. And he was probably writing that in the dirt. So he says, well, since nobody condemned you, neither do I, because I didn't see you do anything. I wasn't there. I'm not a witness. And besides which, if Yeshua, being Yeshua, he would have known. Can we agree? So if she truly was guilty, wouldn't he have to have brought her to the authorities and had them search for witnesses and those kind of things? Or he'd be breaking Torah. He even made the person who he healed go to the priest and show themselves. We know this with the lepers, right? He said, go and to the priest and do what Moses says. So he wasn't going to skip any of the Torah. So then he says this interesting thing at the end, and this is where Christianity really gets us, it's messed up. Go and sin no more. She's probably looking at him like, thanks a lot. Sin no more? How's that done? Anybody here good at that? Like if I told you, go and sin no more, you think you're going to make it through the week? Or the day? Go and sin no more? No, I think what he was saying, and it's translated badly, was don't let others get you involved in this stuff again. Okay, stand up for yourself and don't be put up into this kind of a thing. Because she participated, even if not willingly, but she participated. And I think that he might have been saying it. This is all my speculation, okay? That this is all about Torah, that she had done nothing. I'm probably one of the only teachers out there that tells you that the woman didn't commit adultery. Okay, she had done nothing, and so he said, look, don't go and get involved in this stuff anymore. Okay? Because I can tell you what, we've all seen this. We've seen it in the news, we've seen it in live person, we've seen it in the movies. When you have somebody that's caught in the middle of doing anything, as soon as anybody gives them one step, I'm going to sound like, we're doing, give me 3 steps, right? We're going to do some Southern rock there. Give me 3 steps and I'll be right out the door. They leave quick, don't they? I mean, if anybody lets them go and gives them a half a break anywhere, they're running. She didn't go anywhere. She's just there's nobody there anymore. And so why is she still standing there? Because they probably scared the life out of her to get her to stand there in the first place. And told her, you don't say one word, just stand here, or we will do something to you. And so I think that that's really what's going on. Did that help? Did that make sense? Now, by the way, this little piece here is in the teaching called, What Did Yeshua Do? So if you grab that teaching at some point off the internet, I think I need to redo it because I don't think it's in video. It's only in audio. So it's only on the podcast, but it's called What Did Yeshua Do? And it goes into the woman caught in adultery. Because Yeshua kept the law. He kept the Torah, and this is proof right here that he was absolutely strictly keeping to the Torah. Okay, Pat?
I wonder why she called him master too. She must have believed in him, and that's why I'm thinking they used her.
Well, I mean, master was a polite, respectful way to address this teacher, this man who was in front of her. Kind of like we used to say ma'am and sir. Okay, so it wasn't so much that she recognized who he was, although it could have been. But I'm saying at least what we know is that she was recognizing and trying to be respectful. She was also scared to death because she was afraid she might have gotten killed there because she didn't know if she could trust these guys. They could have stoned her, So here they all have stones in their hands. She's standing there probably trembling like a leaf. And then they're all gone all of a sudden. And she's frozen still. She didn't know what to do. But she recognized that he had authority. He's there in front of her, and she goes, Master, no. She was impressed, as well any of us would be, especially because he just saved her life, probably. At least she thought so, probably. Okay? Because she didn't know what these guys were going to do. Even if they said they weren't going to do anything to her, she didn't know. How do you know? They're all a bunch of guys standing around with rocks, put you in front of them, and they were accusing you of adultery. That doesn't look good. That doesn't look like it's going to end well. And it certainly could have ended very badly. Okay, anybody else on this particular thing with the woman caught in adultery? Okay, bring the mic over to Rick.
Yes, I'm just curious if you could relate, is there any relation between that and Revelation 12, I think it is. Yeah, Revelation 12, 10 through 11.
Well, I mean, this is talking about it. I heard a loud voice saying in the heaven, now have come the deliverance and the power and the reign of our Elohim and the authority of this Messiah. For the accuser of our brothers, who accused them before our Elohim day and night, has been thrown down. I think that would be a stretch. Okay, this is more about, and always when he's interacting with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the scribes, whoever it is coming, the authorities from the Jewish community, was about the law. And all we have to do whenever you see them coming up to him is figure out what issue of law is with and how Yeshua checkmates them every time. Okay, and it's when they get checkmated, they drop the rocks and they walk away. Okay? And I'm sure they sat there going, man, what do we have to do to catch this guy? He is the law. You can't catch him about himself. Nobody knows the law better than he does. The lawgiver, you think he would know? He would know. So he's sitting there probably writing in the dirt going, when are these guys going to get it? I'm saying, okay, you want to play? We'll play. And he put it right to them. See, that's the key. You got to look for key phrases that, again, remember the Ruach is to do what? To bring to remembrance, to stir to bring to remembrance. Well, you can't do that if you haven't put it in the first place. The better you know the law, the better you know the Tanakh, the better it is that's available when you read the New Testament for the Ruach to bring it to your mind. So when you see the phrase, he who among you is without sin, throw the first stone. To throw the first stone, things go, oh, adultery, accusers, witnesses, throwing the first stone. I better go check that out and make sure I've got that straight. Okay, that is the key phrase in there. The throwing the first stone. See, if you've never read the Old Testament, you might not even understand why he would say throwing the first stone. You might just think, well, it has to do with, well, look, if there's anybody innocent and perfect and without sin, then go ahead and stone her. No. The first stone goes to the witness. They don't have to, but they have the right. The witness has the right to throw that first stone. That's literally what the Tanakh says, that the witness has the right to throw the first stone. That's a key phrase. It pops up. Your brain should go, that sounds familiar. What do I know about first stone throwing? Oh, the adultery witness gets to do that. But then there's other verses that say, by the way, in case you're a false witness, could you imagine how much better our government system of judicial system would be if accusers who were false knew that if they were found out to be false, what would be done to them? You would get a whole lot less lawsuits and accusations and waste of time in the courts because those people would be afraid to be exposed. That's brilliant. I mean, this government here should adopt that. Okay? We're not going to waste the court's time anymore. If we find you to be a false witness, you don't just get off the hook. Whatever was going to be done to the one you're accused gets done to you. So think twice about accusing. That's pretty big. We've had some pretty big cases out there of false accusations. Whole bunches of youth who were accused in college of rape or inappropriate sexual things, turned out it was a lie. Now, a lot of times it turns out it's true too, and they deserve what they get, don't get me wrong. But how much is their reputation ruined by the one who lied because of that false accusation? And guess what happened to the false accuser? Almost nothing. They could sue her, I guess. But you understand what I'm saying? So there's so many case after case after case where it turned out the witness was a false witness. Well, guess what? If you knew that what was going to be done was going to be done to you, you probably would hesitate a lot quicker not to get involved. Agree? So Yahweh's brilliant.
Amen.
And here's Yeshua saying it right there. He says, guys, don't forget the rules. Don't forget the rules. We need 2 witnesses. And if you're false, we're going to stone you.
All right, online we got 2 questions related to that. One by Keith says, Yeshua and the woman are witness of the lying up by the crowd. Could they be charged with something? And if so, did he show mercy and grace to them while also upholding the law?
Okay, could he accuse who?
The crowd, because of the lying part.
No. Until it goes into, I guess, the way the court, because here he was, they said that this one was caught in adultery. They were trying to say, well, what do you say we should do? They're basically just looking for his opinion at that point. Now, they had falsely accused her, I believe, but they hadn't actually brought her to a judge and stood up and said, I am a witness to this. So that's why he asked. I said, okay, you're saying that this is what happened, but did you witness it? You know, we get this with our children, right? The children will say, well, such and such and that happened. I said, well, were you there? No. Well, how do you know? Well, because someone told me. But okay, so that's not enough to make anybody guilty. It just shows that it was unwise and foolish what they were doing and potentially could get them in trouble. So that's why he did the thing he should do. He said, okay, did any of you actually witness this? Will the witnesses please step up? Now, if there were witnesses, I'm sure he would have said, that's great. Take her to a judge. You guys are witnesses. Go do what you're supposed to do. By the way, pick him up on the way. All right? Okay.
All right. Next question from Leanne. A question about comparing the woman at the well and the woman caught in adultery. The woman at the well was with a man, not her husband, yet no mention or admonition by Yahweh to her about adultery.
Okay. Bear in mind that we're dealing at this point with the non-Torah observant, to whatever degree, Samaritans, Shomerites. So Yeshua wasn't going to apply or judge them for breaking or keeping Torah. He simply was trying to show her, I know what you've been doing. I know what your life is. I know that you had 5, and that the one you're with isn't your husband. Okay, so he knows what was going on. Now, knowing that was not then to accuse with adultery, because he would have to then go through the same process as everybody else. Just because he as Messiah knew something that other people would not know didn't mean that he wouldn't have to still go through the process of bringing the witnesses or being a witness and going through the whole court process. He was simply trying to show her, I know things I couldn't know if I wasn't Messiah. And so just to show you who I am. Hopefully that answers the question. Okay? Okay, in the back, Richard?
Thanks for enlightening about this, because your points are really well received and have opened my eyes to something that I didn't consider. If the after all the ordeal is over and they leave and he asked her, where are your accusers? And she said, there are none, my Lord. He said, neither do I accuse you. And he says, go and sin no more. We know that false witness is a death penalty accusation as well. You've explained that. So is there a Torah principle that we're not to stand idly by when we see deception, lying, manipulation going on? Is it our responsibility to call it out, confront it, make it known? Because this woman didn't do that. She didn't lie, or she would have been under the death penalty right then. Or is that a principle in Torah that we're not to stand by when injustice goes forth?
No, what you see going on is the same thing that you see Yeshua did. Any of that, actually all of what you said is appropriate only by the appropriate people. None of them were there. So if there was any authorities had been there, they could have grabbed a hold of those guys and said, excuse me, we need to have a talk. Okay? You're accusing this woman of something, but you're not standing up as a witness. This is not good for our society. We may need to correct you and get your attention to say, let's not be doing that anymore. We're going to have a problem with you. But that's for the authorities to do. And since Yeshua was not one and nobody else there was one, there was nothing to do at that point. The big thing that I want to make sure we're all careful of is that none of us decides to be an authority unto ourselves. It's not our job to go and stand up and correct or reprimand or do any of those things when we see those things happening. We can, however, bring it to the attention of the authorities. So if you're in a group that's under authority, in other words, there's a group that's cohesively together and there's leadership in that group, you can bring whatever's going on to the attention of the leadership, and the leadership then can decide what to do. Okay? The bigger problem happens when we individually go ahead and try to take it upon ourselves to choose to do whatever we think we need to do. Because now we brought it upon ourselves, and now we're standing in a basically the idea of usurping authority. We've jumped into authority that wasn't ours. Does that answer your question?
It does, but if I can ask you one expansion.
Okay, hold on, the mic's coming. Wait, hold on, let the mic come first.
What I was talking about is that when you're around, I would never consider teaching. When there's people in authority, I would never be one to correct or enlighten. But as we live our lives and we go back from the time here to our jobs, to our environments, if you find that somebody in the office is corrupt and things are going on, do we have a total responsibility in our personal lives? Or is it only interacting with family members?
No, it's even if you see it on the job. Again, if you see it on the job, you can bring it to the attention of the boss. That's what, there's authority somewhere. Okay? So you just bring it, it's situationally. You got to know where you are. Okay? If you're in a school setting, there are teachers or principals or deans. If you're in a job setting, there are supervisors or bosses or owners or whatever, etc. If you're in a ministry situation, there's pastors or rabbis or deacons or elders or shamashim or whatever. Wherever you are. Now, if you're somewhere where there's no authority structure, you may choose to go up to the person in hopefully a gentle way and say, this may be something you might think about not doing or whatever. Okay, or to address, but just realize you take a little risk in that because you have no idea how they're going to react. Okay? So I'd be very, very careful with that. Yeah, Robert's going to address the point. Okay, give him the mic.
Okay, sometimes when we're reading in scriptures, it's too far detached from today, so sometimes it's harder to understand. I was a program manager for community corrections, all right? I try to address somebody because they're violating the law right in front of me, okay? His attorney's standing right there. His attorney says, that's not your place. You're not the judge. I had to remind his attorney, who knows the law, actually, I'm the one that permits the judge to put him on this program. It's exactly my place because it's my decision if he's allowed to be free or sit in jail. So I had to remind him that, no, there's a structure, and this is my place, because they can't put anybody in the community that has committed a crime without my permission in this county. So, and the attorney knew that, but he had to be reminded, no, that is part of the structure.
Okay, so let's just take this in reverse. Let's say there was another gentleman there, not Robert, who did what Robert did, and it wasn't his job. Then the attorney would be right to say, well, hold on, this is not your authority. See, it's about making sure that the right person is doing it. Now, Robert then turned around and said, well, actually, I am the right person. Okay, but you have to first, for your judge, for basically what Richard's talking about, you have to judge for yourself, or at least acknowledge for yourself, am I actually the person with the authority here? Okay? And that's really what gets problematic. By the way, let me just throw this out there because it's sort of a side issue. On this property, to everyone here, just to kind of make sure we get that worked out, if you have any issues going on, please bring it to our attention, not to the staff's attention here. Come to us first. Don't go to the front desk. Don't go to the kitchen. Don't go to whatever it is. Okay, but please come to us first. We've been having special parties, some of the wedding party people have been doing some of that stuff because they don't know. Okay? So let's try to bring it to Robert's attention or to my attention before anybody goes directly to the staff here so that it may be something we can handle first, or maybe it's something we've already addressed and we can explain to you why it is the way it is so that we're not sort of having this 200 and something of us here. If all of us started going to the staff here, they would want to throw us out. Probably we'd drive them crazy. Okay? So that's, again, an authority thing. So you need to know. That's part of the deal. You need to know who is the authority in a given situation in case you need that authority to make a decision or handle a situation. That's why when all of you checked in, what did I tell you? If you have anything going on, go to Robert first. Why? Because he's in charge. I've given him that authority to handle all things property-wise. Anything going on the property goes to him first. If he thinks it should go to me, he'll send you back. But the idea is 90% of things you might ask me, I'm going to send you to him anyway because he would handle those things. So you needed to understand this. And when you checked in, I told you, almost all of you heard that quick little thing. Hey, if you need anything, go see him. And then he'll direct you to the right person. It may not even be him, but he'll direct you to the right person. All right? But so understanding authority structure is very critical. We're in a world that right now is completely rebellious against any type of structure. Can we all agree to that? Okay? And one of the things that you have a great opportunity to do is to share with people that you spend time with, you know what, I maybe used to think that way. We got a couple people that really used to think that way, okay? But yet, if you've tasted of this, and if you see this as actually being different than what you expect, in other words, it's actually good and serves a purpose, and then tell people, you know what, I've seen people do this a different way, a better way. And then if they look at you like, oh, well, you just, no, say, listen, I did not like authority. I was completely against it. Tell them the truth of where you came from. But then tell them what you've tasted and what you've seen and what you've experienced. Because that's the whole point of MTOI, is to show that this can be done better. We're not claiming we're the only ones doing it right. We're not even claiming we're doing it right. We're hoping that we're doing it better so that we can show people that structure is scriptural, is the way the Father operates, and it can be a blessing to all. Because without structure, what do you have? Chaos. Okay? And chaos doesn't birth anything good, does it? Structure doesn't either sometimes, but at least it has an opportunity to. Chaos never brings good. Never brings good. All right, anybody else on this question before we move on? Okay, Candace, go ahead.
Okay, I was thinking about, you were talking about the woman that was caught in adultery and the false accusers being, getting the same punishment. Mm-hmm. The thought came to me from the Bible about Haman, who was a false accuser, and he ended up on the gallows. And
the gallows that he meant for the one he falsely accused, see?
And also with Haman, he wanted to kill a whole nation, while Yeshua wanted to die for a whole nation.
Amen. Amen. Nice connection. See, that's where, the more you understand Torah, then you could be reading the book of Esther. And as you're reading the book of Esther, you see this happen at the end of the book. You go, oh, that's Torah, actually. That's what Abba put in place. What you would have done gets done to you. And so that plays out beautifully. Okay, Kurt?
So when here, and I'll let you answer this one. So Ramona asks, if you aren't, more of a comment, if you aren't Torah observant, then the law doesn't apply to them. Is this correct?
No. I'm not saying that the law doesn't apply to people. I'm saying is that the responsibility or the punishment or the judgment is not there. I mean, if I drop this, it's going to fall. There's laws that make things when you drop them fall, okay? And that happens whether I believe in that law or not. So there are laws, but the thing is, whatever you did before you knew it was the law, okay, I don't believe Abba's going to punish you for what you didn't know. Now, it's not like we say, well, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, that's when you live in a country where you're supposed to know the laws of the land, etc. They're going to still give you. If you didn't know that the speed limit changed when you drove into a town, and so it's now way lower, when you get caught with it, you get a ticket. But I'm talking about Torah things. Those who are out there that have not had their eyes open, ears open, like you were at one point, I don't believe Abba's going to hold you accountable, although there still may be consequences to what you did, because those are natural consequences. Okay? I always use an example, like if you committed adultery and you got a disease of some sort because of that, that consequence is that consequence. That doesn't mean, though, he's going to hold you accountable for something you did when you were in your ignorance. But what you do when you have your eyes open, that's the deal. As a matter of fact, where did I want to go? In John chapter 11, Where did I see this? Hold on. There was a point here. I just want to see where it is here. Hold on. I thought I put it in my notes. 40 to 41. What was that now? It might be. Let me just see what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the part where he talks to them and says, but you know, so you're guilty. Do you understand what I'm talking about? It says, oh, where it talks about blindness. Where is that? Okay, that's right, 941. Okay, good. Okay, so look what he says here. Verse 39, he says, for judgment I have come into this world, that those not seeing might see, and those seeing might be blind. And the Pharisees who were with him said, are we blind too? And he says, if you were blind, what is he referring to here? If you had not had your eyes opened, because when we see the blindness, there's a lot of verses talking about, Yeshua says over and over again, I am the light. In these chapters, he said it 2 or 3 times. I am the light. I am the light of the world. I am the light that's come into the world, the light. So he enlightens, he shows us, he opens our eyes, and we can see things as they are and as they're supposed to be. But he also has this issue with the blind man, and he brings him sight. Okay, so we have this great physical metaphor for the spiritual. And so here it's coming in this verse, he says, are we blind too? He says, if you were blind, you would have no sin. It doesn't mean you wouldn't do anything wrong. It just wouldn't be considered sin. Why? Because what is sin? Transgression of the law, but it's basically you have to know it's the law. Okay? So he says here, but now you say, we see, therefore your sin remains. The key is it remains. It's still sin when you commit adultery, even if you didn't know it was the law, but the sin isn't held against you because you didn't know it was the law. But if you know it's the law, your sin remains. Until what? You repent, make teshuvah, and take upon yourself the blood of Yeshua to do those things. So he's saying here, no, you guys are the Yehudim. You know, you've been exposed, you've seen. Plus, I'm right here in front of you. And so this is a really big point here. Okay, so the person who asked that question is a good question from online. Okay, we have to understand, because I don't want you to be killing yourself and beating yourself up for everything you did before you knew better. But I do want you to do is take seriously now that you know better. Because it's going to be looked at by him very differently now that you know better. Okay? All right, so we got a lot of hands went up based on what I just said, so go ahead, Nate.
Are we still on the same topic? Or?
Same topic. Okay. You guys who have your hands up on the same topic? Okay, let's get the people on the same topic first. Hugo, go ahead, and then Richard.
So, in Romans, Paul writes, for all are under sin, there's none righteous, no, not one. And then also in the Tanakh, the sacrifices for sins that were done unknowingly. The sacrifices covered those, but there was no sacrifice to cover for sin on purpose, so sin in rebellion. So it just feels to me like, okay, there is none righteous, so Yeshua had to die for everyone. Nobody qualifies. So I hear what you say, though. Obviously, it's pretty clear in John 9 there that Yeshua said, if you had known, but now that you say you know, your sin remains. So I'm just
okay. Yeah, let me hopefully clarify the confusion here. Okay, so first of all, we're talking about, well, let's deal with the sacrifices. Doing sin unknowingly wasn't because you didn't know it was sin. It's just because you didn't realize you did what you did. You may have touched something that you shouldn't have touched. You may have eaten something you shouldn't have eaten. It's not that you didn't know it was sin. You just may have done something by accident. Okay, for example, we had a problem with the dressing here. It turned out there was bacon in it, and maybe 1 or 2 people got it before we caught that. Okay, because the property accidentally had a few in there that wasn't supposed to be in there. That would have been accidental. The person ate it not knowing that it was this. It wasn't that they didn't know it was wrong to eat. They just didn't catch it was there because they assumed we'd already screened everything, and we did, but there was a mistake. All right? So that's what that whole sacrifice was about. Not because you didn't know the law, but because you hadn't realized that you had maybe done something inadvertently. Okay? So that's what that's talking about. The other thing is that what we're talking about here is consequences. The ultimate consequence of sin, which requires the death, burial, resurrection of Yeshua, the mitigating of the death in the fire and the end of life and being done, it's over, that only applies to sin you did knowing it was sin. Now you'd have to understand that we're talking about, now again, this whole idea of the millennium, the kingdom, and what happens when you die, what happens to people that never heard of Yeshua, you know, what about all these people out there that he hasn't opened their eyes yet? I mean, that's a whole nother teaching. If you want to hear about that, we could talk about that tonight after dinner. Okay, because we're going to do a Midrash after dinner, and so if someone wants to bring that up, it's come up a couple of times, we can talk about that. The teaching of the millennium and the kingdom covers that. But what we're talking about, just so you understand, is that when we know, let's put it this way, do we know a lot of people that don't have their eyes open? Okay, are they doing stupid things that would be considered sin according to Torah? Okay. I believe that they are not going to be held accountable for those things until Yeshua opens their eyes at whatever point that is, and they get to see it and make the choice. It's the Deuteronomy stuff that Moses said, right? I lay before you life and death. Have those people you're thinking about had that laid before them yet? No. Have they been able to make that choice? No. They don't even know there's a choice. Oh, but I've told them. That doesn't mean they know there's a choice. They have information about a choice. Remember the whole difference between information and knowing. You can't know there's a choice till he does what? He has to open the blind eye. Okay? In Isaiah 61, it talks about that, you know, the prophecy that he would come to give sight to the blind. That doesn't necessarily mean just the physical blind. Although he does that here with this man here in chapter 9, right? But the thing is, it's the blindness. So let's understand that this thing with the sin, I want you to take a deep breath and I don't have to be that stressed about everybody I know who's all messed up that hasn't been called yet. And don't worry about if they die while they're still all messed up. There's a plan for that. I'm not going to explain it to you now. We'll take the whole rest of the hour to do that, okay? Because we want to cover some more of the chapters here. But just understand that answer to that question is, I believe, in Millennium and Kingdom 3-part teaching. So go listen to that. Okay? And maybe we'll talk about it tonight. Okay. Anybody else so we can move on? Okay, Richard, go ahead.
I'm going to say thank you for that comfort, because all of us have people in our lives that don't see what we see. And it's a frustrating thing because I don't know about everyone else, but sometimes I wonder what qualified me to see. There's a lot of people in my family I think were more qualified. And the thing I'm asking you to weigh in on is Romans 2:11. For there's no partiality with Elohim, for as many have sinned without Torah shall also perish without Torah, and as many have sinned in the Torah shall be judged by the Torah. For not the hearers of the Torah are righteous in the sight of Elohim, but the doers of the Torah shall be declared right. For when nations who do not have the Torah by nature do what is in the Torah, although not having the Torah, they are Torah to themselves, who show the work of the Torah written on their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts accusing or even excusing. In the day of Elohim, in the day when Elohim shall judge the secrets of men through Yeshua Messiah, according to the good news. And in reading that, I just wanted you to weigh in on that, because it's interesting saying that even those who don't have what we've seen, if they live the life that Torah requires, is that what it's saying? Though those having uncircumcised hearts live a circumcised life, what is that?
Okay. First of all, nobody knows what Paul's talking about except the people he wrote it to. I'm not being a wise guy here, okay? Paul was addressing something that was going on in that group. And so we have, those in Rome would understand, hopefully, what he was talking about. But let's understand that, first of all, let's take the word Torah out of there, because the word just says law in Greek. And sometimes it's referring to the Torah, sometimes it's not. So when it talks about, for example, who show the work of the law written in their hearts, what law might be written in their hearts? It could be the law of sin and death, the law of man, It could be the law of the Torah. We have to understand that we can't just, because someone translated it like in the ISR and put Torah in there, that's always what they're talking about. But let me take the beginning of this, where it starts showing there is no partiality with Elohim. For as many have sinned without the law shall also perish without the law, and as many have sinned in the law shall be judged by the law. Okay. That part is simple. We could take it from there. Everything else flows from that anyway. Paul's wording gets a little convoluted, but let's understand it all flows from it. First of all, there's no partiality means that, okay, you know what? We'll take like 10 minutes to try to answer this. How's that, okay? Will that help everybody? Okay. You'll just have to bear with me because I'm giving you a very short version of a long answer. When you're answering a scriptural question, and maybe this is probably the most important thing in these chapters anyway, so as long as we cover this, we'll probably have covered the most important stuff. When you're dealing with any scriptural issue, it's like putting a puzzle together, or making a picture. And in order to put a puzzle together, can we agree that it won't look right if you leave any pieces out? Okay? So we need to have all the pieces. So what are the pieces that we need to understand how the Father would treat us? Well, this is one of those pieces. There is no partiality. He's not a respecter of persons. Can we agree to that? Okay, can we agree that he does everything with fairness? Can we believe the verse that says that it's his desire, if possible, all men be saved? Okay. So do we also know that there is a judgment, so we know not all will be saved? So there must be some reason why it's his desire that they all would, but not everybody would. There's got to be some sort of reason for that. And it's got to be a reason that's not partial and that is fair. Can we agree so far? Okay, so it's got to be fair, no partiality, and it's his desire. Now, if it's his desire that all men be saved, that means what? It must be possible that everybody has an opportunity to be saved. It has to be possible, can we agree? So there has to be a part of this plan that makes it possible for everybody to have an opportunity to be in the kingdom. Okay, and we know that by choice, some will choose not to be. They'll choose to be self-sovereign, rebellious, and not submit to his authority. Okay, so that being said, there's a couple of more pieces of this puzzle. So we know that Scripture refers to something called the second death, right? Is it possible to have a second death without a second life? Come on, it's simple. No. I mean, you can't go, I'm alive, I'm dead again. Okay, you can't get any more dead than the first dead unless you're alive again. Okay, it just doesn't work that way. All right, so you have to be alive a second time. Okay, so somewhere in this whole plan, there's a second death, which means for some, at least, there'll be a second life. Can we also know that there's a verse that talks about a first resurrection? Okay, why would you call anything first unless there was more than one? You just call it the resurrection. But calling it the first resurrection means there's at least a second one. Can we agree? Okay, so all of these are pieces of the puzzle that we're going to try to fit together. Okay? Do we also know that there's a thing called the millennium? 1,000 years, Yeshua here ruling and reigning. Why? Well, we got to add that into this puzzle. Figure out what's the point of 1,000 years here on earth reigning and ruling. Okay, do we know, excuse me, do we know that when he returns and he starts ruling and reigning, that there will be about 2-3 billion people still alive after all of the tribulation? Just simple math, a third will die of pestilence and plagues and stuff, a third will die of the sword, a third still lives. Right now we've got close to 9 billion people on the planet, whatever it is, 8 billion people, so that's at least 2-3 billion people still alive. What's the point of all that? Okay, can we also agree that if he's fair, he's not a respecter of persons, and all these other things we said, can we also understand that there are lots of people on this planet in the history since it was created that never ever heard of Yeshua or the Torah? Okay. Are we going to act like some Christian groups and just say they're all doomed? Well, that would break the partiality rules and the fairness rules and all the other things, wishing that all men be saved. You see, all the pieces have to be there. So what about all those millions and millions of people that never, throughout the last 6,000 years, that never heard of him, never knew there was the life-death choice, right? See, I think everybody has to pass the Deuteronomy 8:2 test. That's my opinion. I've taught that for years. Deuteronomy 8:2 says that he lets you live your life through a wilderness journey after he opens your eyes right? Remember, this is Israel being called out of Egypt, walking through the wilderness, to humble us, because after all, he's got to be in charge of you. So he has to humble you, and then he wants to see. He's going to put you through situations to test and prove whether it's your desire, whether it's in your heart to submit and keep his commandments. That's the test we must pass to be in the incorruptible, to be changed into the incorruptible, to spend forever with him in the forever kingdom. Now, I know some people have emailed or even posted things when I talk about the millennium and something different called the kingdom. Those are my words to help describe two different things. I know there's verses that say, well, the kingdom is at hand, or that it will... Listen, when Yeshua is sitting on the throne ruling during the millennium, that's a kingdom. But I want to differentiate the two periods of time. So there's the millennial reign, which is a kingdom. But if I keep saying kingdom and kingdom, it doesn't really make it sense, right? So the millennial reign, and then what I call the forever kingdom that happens after the 1,000 years. Okay, so we now have to think about how can a plan be in place that integrates all these pieces of the puzzle. And I probably left out a few that I'll remember as we're going, because I'm not doing this with notes in front of me today. Okay, so my thought is this. Everybody, to be fair, gets one chance. Is that reasonable? Okay. But is it also reasonable to say that if he hasn't opened your eyes and your ears, you haven't had your chance? Is that reasonable? Is that fair? Okay. So that means that all of your family members that are still alive or have passed or anything like that, you can relax, because probably most of them did not have their chance. Because most of them never knew this stuff. So you need not be fearful that they're doomed, because the odds are that they just never had their chance. We're talking about people like Korach. He had his chance. Ground opened up, took care of him, he's done. Okay? Because he knew, his eyes were open, and he did what he did. We have lots of examples of people like that in Scripture. They knew, and they did what they did. And that was their chance. And so we have to keep that in mind. One chance. So every time I teach this, everybody thinks I'm teaching second chance theology. No. Oh, piece of the puzzle. It says in Scripture, judgment is now on who? The house of Elohim. Not on anybody else? No. He says judgment. So who is the house of Elohim? The ones who are in their chance. The ones whose eyes have been opened. The ones whose ears have been opened. The ones whose chance it is right now. You are in your chance. You better take it seriously. You don't get another one. However, he says, because you're in this group, which I think is the hardest group to be in to get to that place, he said, blessed are those who are in the first resurrection. Because you see, in the millennium, I believe those 2 billion people or so are going to be joined at some point, maybe in tiered-in resurrections, all the rest of the people that ever lived that never had their chance. And we who are alive, who were changed in that blessed first resurrection, and those that died and had passed the test, so to speak, the Deuteronomy 8:2 test, and were resurrected in that first resurrection, right? Because it says the first resurrection of those who are alive and those who died in Messiah. Oh, but wait a minute. All those people who lived, Messiah wasn't alive all back then. Remember, dying in Messiah means Torah, truth, light, the whole thing. They all had that. Moses had that. Abraham had that. Isaac, Jacob, all the prophets, they had that. So did a lot of the people they ministered to. And so all of them will be in the first resurrection. And guess what our job's going to be? To teach all those 2-3 billion people. Because all of them are now going to have their eyes opened. Okay? And so we're going to have that's why I tell you that you have to do the 4 things. Learn this stuff so you understand it, so you can do it, so you can defend it, so you can teach it. Because ultimately that's going to be your job. And when we see the parables of the people who are given this many cities and that many cities, you know what? You might be actually given a city or 2 or 3 to work with. Think about how many people might be in that remnant compared to 3 billion people still alive. Each one of you may have quite a little group of people to work with. More than 200 or 300 in a room like this. Just think about that powerful thing. So that's why we don't worry about the ones who are doing all these sins and all these other things because their eyes are open. They just don't know. I would worry about the ones who you know. I mean, their eyes have been open. They get it, and they still don't do it anyway. This is their one chance. Everybody gets one. Now remember, the second death is there because some people are going to be resurrected from death, the first death, into a second life to get that choice so they could choose life or death. And they may get the second death. Nobody comes back from that one. Or they may get changed to join those who are changed. Does that make sense? Okay? So hopefully that helps clarify this whole thing. That's the key to all of this. And by the way, there's a beautiful thing in Micah 4, and we'll read this to kind of like explain things real clearly. So in Micah 4, okay, so in case you're looking for Micah, it's right after Jonah. Thanks a lot, okay? And right before Nahum, that's going to really help you. Okay. Okay? Micah 4. See, now if you have a Bible like mine that you've been using relentlessly for years and going to the same chapters, when I pull it open, it like almost opens there, okay? So I don't take a long time to find these things. Micah 4:5. Actually, let's go to 4:1. Okay, so 4:1 it says, "And in the latter days it shall be that the mountain of the house of Yahweh is established on the top of the mountains." Latter days means what? Millennium, okay? End time, millennium time. How do we know? Well, listen what it says. "And many nations shall come and say, 'Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh.'" Okay, terrible singing on my part. Okay, so we know that this is talking about that time. Okay, "To the house of Elohim of Yaakov, and let him teach us his ways, let us walk in his paths. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among many peoples, reprove strong nations afar off. They're going to beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore." This does not happen till when? The millennium. So we know this has not happened yet, right? Okay. Verse 4, "But each one shall sit under his vine and under his fig tree." I read this to you the other day. "And no one make them afraid, for the mouth of Yahweh of hosts has spoken." So they're going to be able to study Torah and be unmolested and unbothered, and nobody's going to give them any grief. Remember, we used the metaphor of the fig tree was for study. Now, the next word in verse 5 says "for." This comes from the understanding from the Hebrew and even in English. The idea of this is saying all of the stuff that we just said is because of this. It says "for." In other words, all this stuff's going to happen because what? All the peoples are going to walk, each one in the name of their mighty one, but we will walk in the name of Yahweh our Elohim forever and ever. Each one is going to walk in the name of another God? And somehow that's the reason all this good stuff is happening? Is there any way that we read verse 5 and the people walking in the name of their mighty ones is a problem? No, it's a good thing. You know why? Because that means they're going to be walking in the name of whichever one of you has been assigned to them. Because you are going to be part of the Elohim family. And then it says, "But we who are in that first resurrection, we're going to walk in the authority of Yahweh." See, the authority is going to go down. Father, Yeshua, you and me and everyone else in that first resurrection. Then these people, there's a hierarchy. It's called discipleship. And so it says, the reason all this good stuff is happening is because each person is going to be walking under one of you, and we're going to be walking under the authority of him, who's walking under the authority of his Father. And all this good stuff is starting to go good. It's starting to happen. Is this making sense? All right, end of message. It's being recorded now on the live stream. It's recorded on the Millennium and Kingdom teaching, which I'm going to redo probably because I don't think, was that one on video? I don't even remember. It is on video, right? Oh, well, I always promise you a part 4 anyway, so. When I did it, I said there'd be another part, and I've never done the last part will deal with the state of the dead and all that kind of stuff. But Hugo, go ahead.
If you want, would you care to explain how Revelation 25 fits into your picture?
I don't care to. Let's move on. He put it that way. I mean, you know. Okay, so in verse 5 in Revelation 20, it says, parenthetically, and the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. Excuse me. Okay? Again, that one verse, remember what we talked about over and over again. If we have a verse that we're not sure how it works, because we have one that says one thing and 99 that say something else, we don't kind of try to make the 99 fit into the one. So I don't know really exactly how I would put that. It could be that when it talks about the rest of the dead being resurrected, it's those that are going to be thrown into the fire, or whatever it is with that part of it, okay? But those that are going to get their chance are going to get it during the millennium. And there's a lot more verses that talk about during the millennium, an old man will die at 100, or, a young man will be over 100 years, or all these other things. So there's stuff going on in the millennium, okay? That's different than what we see going through all of here. So that doesn't mean that when we read the verses, we're not going to find that odd one verse or two that doesn't seem to fit. Here's what I want to make sure we're clear about, and this is a kind of counsel to you. When you're studying things and you're kind of forced to try to come up with your own theory, your own hypothesis, how this might work, okay? And you're going to put the puzzle together, at least make sure it actually works. It doesn't mean all the pieces will fit right, but that it generally works, because you're going to find these odd duck pieces that just don't seem to have a clear fitting of where it goes into the picture. So this one in Revelation 20 is not really clear how that fits into the picture, because it doesn't really say who the rest of the dead are at this point. It doesn't make it so clear. And then it seems like it's almost inserted when it says, and they lived and reigned with Messiah 1,000 years. This is the first resurrection. That other piece, this kind of feels like it was sort of inserted there and doesn't really belong, and it doesn't make it clear what it does. So I'm not saying it's an insert. I'm just saying it makes it hard for us to know, because it was kind of inserted into a thought. I mean, clearly you can see it's kind of popped into the middle of a thought. And so that may legitimately have been that way, but doesn't mean that we know exactly what the person meant when they wrote it. Okay? So we have to be careful with that. Daweed?
I was about to look it up, but I can look it up for anyone who wants to. I know it's there. I've read it several times. In the Gospels, soon after Messiah's resurrection, or about the time he died actually, it mentions that many of the graves were opened, and people that were the forefathers ended up coming out and spreading the good report to people before Yeshua was actually resurrected. So there's more than one resurrection, and that's why I can believe exactly what he's saying when Yeshua is walking the earth.
Okay. I wish you hadn't said that. Okay, so because first of all, that's a section that only appears once. It doesn't actually make sense to almost anything else that goes on. If that had happened, you'd think the historians would have written about it, and nobody wrote about it. So I'm actually more of a mind that that's not what happened, okay? And so, now, in a sense, I'm glad you brought it up, because somebody else might bring it up at some point. But we don't see that as making sense in the rest of the picture, okay? Because the first resurrection, okay? Now, raising Lazarus from the dead is not a resurrection. He raised him from the dead. And by the way, we have to also go to the idea of when you die, you go to heaven, you go to hell. Well, really, Lazarus was just smelling. They didn't yank him out of heaven, they didn't yank him out of anywhere else. He was just dead. That kind of goes back to the state of the dead thing. He's been dead 4 days. They said he already smelled. Okay? So just kind of, that's all that was in this reading from today, the whole thing about Lazarus, being dead. So let's just be careful with that. But yeah, I mean, Daweed brought that up. I'm not trying to pick on you, because that is a section that I always go, I don't know about that. Okay, that doesn't seem to make sense, doesn't fit into anything else. And quite frankly, it's not written in all the Gospels. We don't see this like everybody talking about it. And something like that, you would think at least one historian would have said, oh my gosh, that better write that down. I mean, that would have been historically recorded somewhere, and it's not. Okay? So I would lean in the direction that that's probably not what happened. Okay? That's probably not what happened. Probably. So don't attack me like, oh, you're going against the word. I hate to tell you, but this book, in the translation we have today, and I'm not talking about ISR, I mean any translation we have today, is not perfect. We do not have an unadulterated, perfect word of Elohim. I believe he gave it when it was perfect, when he gave it. If we had original copies, we'd have it perfect. So I love these people like say, I stand on the Word. The Word is perfect. There's no errors in it. Well, not in any translation I've ever seen. I haven't seen one without errors. Have you? Okay? I've never seen one without errors. So we have to be careful. Now, the truth is there. And when you put the puzzle together, you can see the consistency of a message from book to book, from Old Testament to New, from prophet to gospel. You see that. You can have confidence in those things. I get nervous about the things that are said once. That doesn't mean they're wrong. It just makes me a little uncomfortable. I like the things that are said like 100 times. Okay, that makes me feel really good. That really makes me feel very good to see something said over and over and over and over. And when I see things linked beautifully together, like Yeshua's opening up the eyes of blind, and Isaiah talks about opening up the eyes of the blind, and you see these things kind of play out together, and it all fits beautifully. Because man has manhandled this book. Yahweh has preserved his word in it despite whatever effort we've made. And you know I'm telling the truth because a lot of you don't use, for example, the NIV. Why? Because you think it's a terrible translation. A lot of you use certain translations because you think it's a better translation. And so we've had enough wisdom and understanding and education to be able to look through things and realize when you look at the Hebrew, look at the Greek, sometimes it doesn't say what it's supposed to say. There's a lot of also words and verses or parts of verses that don't even exist in the Hebrew or the Greek, but have been added. The NIV in Mark 7 added, and thus Jesus made all foods clean. That's not in any Greek manuscript. Zondervan added that. Thank you, Zondervan, for giving us the not so or nearly inspired version. Okay, the NIV. All right? And so we have to understand that that's going on. So I guess in some ways, Dawid, it was good that you brought that up because that brings that issue up about things that we have to be careful with. Because we have to understand the book has had things in it that are just, we don't know what to do with them. So what do I do with those things? I don't tear them out. I don't cross them out. I've got a big bookshelf, so to speak, a bookshelf. I take these things, I stick them up on the shelf. I have a lot of things on the shelf. Some of them that were on there I've taken down because I've been given understanding of where they actually fit. I just didn't know at the time, so I put it on the shelf. Some of you need to put Paul completely on the shelf because you don't know what to do with him. So stop letting him be a stumbling block. Just take him and put him on a shelf. Nothing wrong with that. I'm going to mess you all up. Do you all realize you don't need Paul at all? Yep. By the way, I'm not just going to say that about Paul. You don't need James, John, or Peter either. Yep. You need the four Gospels, though. Revelation 12:17 says, these are those who have what? The Torah and the testimony. Those are the things you need. How did all those New Testament people come into belief? They heard the testimony, mostly from people who were there, and they knew the Torah. They knew the Tanakh. And so if you're not finding John, James, Peter, and Paul's writings useful, stop using them. Put them on the shelf. If they're confusing you and causing you to stumble. You don't need them. Almost whenever it says, and 5,000 came in, and 3,000 came in, you know, none of them had John, James, or Peter, or John. They didn't have any of those guys' writings. Do we all agree to that, at least? So if people can come into belief and come into the body without something, so can you. So I'm not telling you that those are bad books. I like those books, including Paul's writings. But it's taken me a lot of years to kind of wrestle to understand what Paul might really be actually saying. And we've clarified some of that. But if any of that is causing you a challenge, there's no problem just putting it aside for now. I'm not telling you to throw these people out and say they're false apostles. I'm just saying you got plenty of other stuff to use to get where you need to go. The Tanakh and the Gospels. That's it. It worked for everybody in the first century. They didn't have anything else. Can we agree? Okay. Because somebody actually came up to me at one point and asked me after services privately, he did the right thing, asked me privately, do you think we need Paul? I said, let me make sure I'm understanding the question. You said need, right? He said, yeah. I said, no. I said, we can't need something that others didn't need. Okay? If others could get there without something, then it's possible to get there without it. Amen. Otherwise, how did they do it? Okay? How did they do that? Because it's possible to do that. Okay, and then that person stopped coming. They said, well, I'm sorry, I can't walk with you. I said, okay, that's your choice. And I give the person credit. They didn't stir up the congregation. They didn't stir up anybody. Talk to me privately. So I give them a lot of credit for that. But the whole point is, let's be careful about what we need. Without the Gospels, you know nothing about Yeshua. You need the Gospels. It tells you about his life and what he said and what he did. And then he is here to point you to the Torah. So you need the Tanakh. Even Paul says to Timothy, the scriptures you've had since you were a youth. It didn't include the Gospels or his writings or John, Peter, and James's writings. It was the Tanakh. None of that other stuff existed available to anybody. And I can promise you, when it comes to Paul, I think Paul would be actually very shocked and surprised that we're using his private letters that he wrote to his congregations as sort of gospel. I think he would. As a matter of fact, I don't think that most of his congregations had any idea what he wrote to the other ones. Every now and then he mentions one to the other, but generally he's writing that letter to them. It's for them. It's about them. And so those that were hanging out in Corinth were not all that sure what was going on in Ephesus. Now, they didn't get the letters to the Corinthians weren't then shared with the Ephesians and the Colossians and the Philippians and the other guys, and Galatians. Okay? That came way later. Way, 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 way later. Anyway, so that was my little sidebar here. Okay, who's got the mic? Christine?
Well, I did have a couple verses and a couple questions, but I think as I read them, to kind of answer them myself based on what you've already been saying. But the topic about the resurrections and the Revelation 20, that is covered in the Millennium and Kingdom teaching, you said?
The one about the rest of the dead being resurrected in the middle of that verse 5, I don't remember what I said about that. I'm sure I probably mentioned it at some point. But the white throne judgment is mentioned there. Okay, so the rest of Revelation 20. Okay, so I do cover the verse 11, through 12 thing. Okay, I believe I covered those in the teaching.
Okay, because those topics are a really big question in my mind. Like I said, I have yet to go through your teachings on that because I come from Seventh-day Adventism, and that they've,
Yeah, no, they've got that, in my opinion, they've got that whole thing very, very wrong. Okay? The Adventists have the 144,000, those who were sealed and saved and whatever they call it, all in heaven during the millennium. Okay? And not here on earth. Which makes no sense since Yeshua's here on earth, so why would they be up there? But, hey, obviously they're not interacting with all the people here. They're not perfected yet or something. I don't know. But they missed the opportunity in understanding that those who are here, instead of there, are teaching those who are here. We will have that role, that job, and that's hinted at all throughout the Scripture, that will be something we would be doing. Because I have to tell you what, when I was a kid and I first heard about this whole New Testament thing and all that kind of stuff, this idea of going to heaven or going to hell is not something they talk about very much in Judaism, okay? Because after all, that's not the way they understand it. But on the same token, the way that Christianity painted a picture of heaven as a kid, as I heard it, was sort of strumming a harp and just basking in the glory of his face. And just, I'm ADHD. That's hell. That's not helping get my attention. I'm not interested in that. We're going to do what? We're going to play just bask in the... No? I'll take the fire, please. I mean, it just, But the idea of all creation moaning and groaning in anticipation, because guess what? He may just give us some of those worlds to do there what Yeshua did here. How cool would that be? Okay? So for all you artistic types, creative types, and want to build and design and do all that, you may have a great project beyond all art projects of all time. Here's a star system. Do what you want with it. It's yours. How cool would that be? All right? And so there's so much more to it that can then really get us excited about what's coming up in the future. All right. Yeah. Because the harp thing didn't work for me at all. It wasn't going to motivate me, if you understand what I'm saying. Okay? The Father he's the originator of the carrot and the stick. He's offering you eternal life, doing awesome, amazing things. And he offers you the stick, which is, or you could just be dead and be completely cut off, and that's it, that's done. So you could spend forever doing incredible things, or just be done. Your choice, okay? Now, we also know that our Father is merciful and compassionate and fair. And so, for anybody to believe in a God or a creator that would torture people forever, that makes no sense. Okay, we can thank Dante for writing a book and the Catholic Church for embracing it. Because that's where it all came from. Okay, from the Inferno. But people, because the church needed more of a bigger stick. They were not getting people to do what they wanted enough. It didn't matter that they were torturing them and all the other things they were doing, burning them at the stake and everything else that they did. They needed a bigger stick. And so they embraced that. Anyway, so that will be part of what would be in part 4 of that Millennium Kingdom teaching, if I ever get to it. Okay, so where do we want to go now with John chapters 8 through 11? Okay. How did Christine end up over there? Did you think if you moved you get another chance at the mic? You could have kept the mic over there. It would have been okay.
I did.
Am I going to see you over here next?
So what was my question?
I'm thinking we got more than one of you. I'm like looking, how did you end up over there?
So
if I keep this up, she won't remember the question.
Pretty much. It's my ADHD kicking in too. So the other day we had mentioned about the women at the well. I'm not sure if you had come back around to that. Do we have time to? No? Okay.
No, we're going to
I get
barely...
that response a lot.
No, we've got about chapter 12 here. I mean, it's only 12 o'clock. We only got about 10, 15 minutes to try to get some of the points in chapters 8 through 11. So let's kind of try to do that real quickly here. Okay, Nate? And then we'll go to James. Go ahead, Nate.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to draw attention to the part in chapter 8, verse 39 and 40. If you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has spoken to you and the truth which I heard from Elohim. Abraham did not do this. And I was thinking about way back, and I just looked it up, and I can't remember which book it's in now. But basically, the part where the 3 visitors came to visit Abraham and spoke with him, and Abraham just blessed Yeshua basically when he arrived, and was there and available to bless Yeshua rather than try to trick him and do him wickedly. I mean, that's a statement and a question all on its own.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely, look, there's verses when it, we already read earlier where it says, oh, Abraham longed to see my day, or those kind of things, and before Abraham was, I am. And so, yes, he says, but now you seek to kill me, a man who has spoken to you the truth, which I heard from Elohim. Abraham did not do this. So absolutely, you could be looking at Genesis, 12? Okay? And at the beginning of that chapter, and Yahweh appears to Abram. Did I get it right? 18. Okay, Genesis 18. It's either, I knew it was 12, 18, okay. Because we start the Abraham story right in there. And then it said 18. See, on my page, and on mine, it's right at the top of the left-hand column of the left page. That's where it is. So that's how I know where it is. So Genesis 12 is when we get introduced to Abraham. That's why I had it there. And in chapter 18, which is right here on the top of the left page, it says Yahweh appeared to him at the terebinth trees of Mamre. Okay, so yes. But then we see Abraham shows hospitality. Abraham's known for his hospitality. And so here, he's making another connection to jab at the Pharisees, saying, Abraham treated me better than you guys. By the way, that also connects him to the one that was the Yahweh of the Old Testament. Okay, so you have all of that going on there. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay? On this side, James.
Yes, John 10:16. Throughout my life, I've always read this verse, and I'm sure...
Hold the mic by your mouth, please.
I'm sure you're going to laugh. When Yeshua speaks of having sheep not of this fold, I go back to a parallel universe. You know, that's as a kid, that's what I always thought, that he has another system at another planet. You know, doing the same thing he's doing here on Earth.
Okay, amen. Okay, Okay, we're entering a space of, okay, not of space and time, but of mind. Okay, we did this in the Discovering Your Identity teaching. He's simply telling the Jews, there's more of you guys scattered everywhere that I need to gather as well. Okay, of this fold meaning the Jews. Okay, so he's saying, look, my sheep know my voice. But remember, they had a myopic way of looking at things, that everything was about us, the left, the remainder, the Jews. He said, but other sheep I have. So that's one of the verses I marked down to make sure we hit on, because that's one of those key verses when he talks about that. He says, look, and other sheep I have that are not of this fold, I bring them as well, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. One flock, one shepherd, Ezekiel 37. The two sticks coming together, and there shall be one flock, one shepherd. It says that in Ezekiel 37. Okay? So he's referring to things that they would know and you should know. So that so they should know who he's talking about and what he's talking about. The two sticks coming together. Because in Ezekiel 37, just to kind of read that one little piece there, it says here, all right, in verse 21, it says, thus said the Master Yahweh, see, I'm taking the children of Israel from among the Gentiles, wherever they've gone, shall gather them from all around, and I shall bring them into their land, and I'm going to make them one nation in the land on the mountains of Israel, and one king shall reign over them all, and let them no longer be two, and let them no longer be divided into two kingdoms, no longer two nations or two kingdoms. Okay, so this is important, that we understand that they're going to be brought together and there's going to be one. We see at the end of verse 25, it says, and my servant Dawid be their prince forever. And so it's talking about the son of David there. It's talking about King David as the metaphor ultimately for Yeshua being the king. So we have that. And so he's referring to those kind of things when he says, and other sheep I have. Now that also could connect to Abram being told, you will be the father of many goyim. So in the scattering of Israel, this was the vehicle by which he would then get the message to everyone. Because scattered Israel doesn't like have a brand on their head saying I'm part of scattered Israel or something, you know. So we don't know who's Israel and who's not. But here's a really interesting thing. Look at chapter 11 and verse 52. I think I wanted to write here. Okay? It says, now okay, by the way, here's an endorsement for people messing with the book. Do you think John would say the Passover of the Jews? And he's talking to Jews. Somebody else did that. John didn't talk that way. I can't believe that for a second. And the Passover of the Yehudim was near. Who's John's audience? Jews. So why would he talk that way? When I talked to you about coming to Passover, and all of you called me at some point about coming here, did I talk to you about, are you coming to the Passover of the Jews? I said, are you coming to Passover? Because you already know what Passover is. So somebody wanted to make sure to clarify for people that didn't know what this was. And they also wanted to make sure you knew it wasn't for you. So this was somebody who wanted the Gentiles to be reading this a certain way. But listen to what it says here. And that was in verse 55. I wanted to go to verse 52. Okay, and not from the nation only, but to gather together. Okay, so verse 51, but he did not say this for himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Yeshua was about to die for the nation, and not for the nation only, but to gather together into one, who? The children of Elohim who were scattered. So who was scattered? Israel. But notice then, in verse 54, where does Yeshua go? To a city called Ephraim. Ah, there's a picture there. Did any of you catch that before? Ooh, it's good, isn't it, though? Verse 53 goes, and so that day they plotted to kill him, and Yeshua therefore no longer went openly among the Jews, but went therefore into the country near the wilderness. Near the wilderness they were scattered to a city called Ephraim. What do we call the houses? Judah and Ephraim. So just talked about the scattering, and then he goes to Ephraim. That's pretty cool. I love that picture right there. Okay? I don't think I've ever said that before, but I was just writing this down, reading the verse, going, oh, look, that's so cool. Well, mark of that. All right? Okay, anybody else, real quickly? In the back, Richard?
We have a little mind reading there because that's the exact scripture I was going to read. And the tie-in for me is Ezekiel 47:21, when it talks about the scattered. I feel like I'm part of the scattered. My identity is that. And you shall divide this land among yourselves according to the tribes of Israel. And it shall be that you divide it by lot as an inheritance for yourselves and for the strangers who sojourn with you in your midst, and who bear children among you. And they shall be to you as native born among the children of Israel. With you they have an inheritance in the midst of the tribes of Israel. And it shall be that in whatever tribe the stranger sojourns, there you give him his inheritance, declares the Master Yahweh. And I thought that was an interesting insight. I've never seen this scripture before, because I've always heard that when Jerusalem comes down and the 12 gates for the 12 tribes, and here it is saying that we get to, I guess we get to decide what tribe we want to be a part of, which tribe's personality we fit or gifts and talents. Is that a correct understanding?
Say that one more time, the last part.
That we get to pick which tribe we want to be a part of? Is that what this says?
He's going to tell you where you belong.
So we'll get assignments.
You'll get assignments. Yeah, he's going to tell you where you belong. I believe that's going to more likely be what's going on here. Okay? I'm looking at one more thing here. Okay, go ahead. Does somebody else have the mic real quick before I got a shotgun one or two things. Go ahead, Francis.
In chapter 11,
step up.
Verse 47, it says, the chief priests and Pharisees gathered a council and said, what shall we do? That reminded me, wasn't there a council of Laodicea that gathered together to separate the Jews from the converts so that they wouldn't follow what the Jews did, but kind of Christianity got birthed? I don't know, I just saw a correlation there. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with the timing and the names of the different places where things were done as far as early Christianity, but that certainly sounds like that's something that did happen at some point. Because you did have a lot of the early church fathers using the phrase, not to Judaize, which meant don't keep the Torah, where we've been set free from that and all this other nonsense, okay? So we have that going on, all right? Go ahead.
I have another one. Back to chapter 9, or 8, is that okay?
Yep.
So I was explaining this passage to someone that I know who has been raised in the Christian world like I was. And they took offense when I explained to them that the penalty for adultery is death according to the law. Because that was something that they had done in their past, and they just took offense to it. Now, because Yeshua died, I didn't really know what to say to kind of bring comfort to that person, because they were thinking in their head, oh my gosh, I deserve death. Do you know, what would you say in that situation?
I would say that you probably should find someone to counsel with and understand where you were at and what you did, and look, whatever you do, repentance fixes it. That's what I would say. So if you regret what you did and now you're concerned about what you did, repent. That's going to be what's going to happen. Okay, but it also depends on, and not depends on, but part of the counsel would be depending on where they were in the walk when they did it. And so they would need to have counsel to help them through that process. But even if you're in the walk and you do something really stupid and sinful, you can repent. Now, you can't do it like the Catholics would do, knowing I'm just going to go to confession, so I'll do whatever I want and just confess it, do whatever I want and go to confession. Okay? You did what you did, and now you go and repent with the full intention, or the repentance is useless, of never doing it again. With the full regret that you did it in the first place, and wishing that you'd never done it. And if that's done, that is what we call true repentance. I have a teaching called repentance. You might want to listen to that, okay? And that will help you with that process. Can I just quickly hit a couple of things? We have like 5 minutes, not even. Okay, I want to just hit a couple of things real quick. All right. John 8. Very important. This is a verse that people talk about over and over again, the idea of the truth setting you free. Understand that it starts off in verse 31. Yeshua said to the Jews who believed. So let's understand the context is who he's talking to. Those who were Torah observant, these are the Jews who believed. He says, if you stay in the Torah, in the truth, in me, in my word, you are truly my disciples. You're truly my disciples, and you shall have a relationship with the truth. Remember that word knowing again. And that relationship with the truth, that truth will set you free. Free from what? Slavery to the law of sin and death, which rules in your members. Set you free from bondage to sin. Set you free from all the nonsense that has caused the misery in your life. Not free from everything to do whatever you want. Because if you have a relationship with the truth, walking truth brings joy and peace and all the other good fruit. Walking the other way brought all the misery and suffering and everything else. Dayenu, right? It would be sufficient if I just could get that part. Because people will say, oh, well, we got to quote John, 8, where it says, and you shall know the truth, and truth shall set you free. So I know the truth that Messiah died and was resurrected, so I'm free now. No. He says you have to stay in my word to be a taught one. And then if that's going on, he says, and you, those taught ones who stay in his word, and those taught ones will know the truth, and the truth will set them free. It's like in John 14, we're going to get there when he talks about, and you shall ask things in my name. Well, look, let's just to go there real quickly for a second, just to read that one piece. In John 14, it says, and whatever you ask in my name, I shall do. Well, there's a lot of stuff before that, okay? And so we have to understand that before, it says, if you ask whatever in my name, I shall do it. Well, there's stuff that talks more about that. And what about when it says, and I shall ask the Father to send a helper to you? Well, it starts off first with, if you love me, guard my commandments, and I'll send a helper to you. It doesn't say I'm going to send a helper to you if you're doing anything and everything under the sun. Context, follow the flow of what's being said. So here he says, look, if you stay in my word, you are truly my students, and you, students, will have a relationship with truth that will set you free. So if you're still not free, you're not maybe staying in his word and really being his student. Maybe there's a struggle there. Maybe you're not having enough of a relationship with the word, the truth, the light, the life, etc., the Torah. Because that's what sets you free. See, you take Stephen, he was free. So free that when they were killing him, he smiled, looked up, and didn't care. It was okay. Because he was free from everything. He didn't have anything to worry about at that point. Nothing you can do to me that's going to make a difference because I am free. You guys are still manipulated by your children, by your parents, by your friends, by your bosses because you have not been set free. They have leverage on you. If anybody on this planet or any other entity out there other than Yeshua and the Father have any influence over you, you are not free. How's that for a statement? Think about it. If there's anybody or anything that can influence you other than them, you are not free. That's something to ponder and think about. We should probably end with that. Let me just think. Let's see. Over and over again, Yeshua talks about the works of my Father, like the miracles. Like you know, if you don't believe me, but believe the signs or believe the works. You know what? What if he was talking about Torah observance as opposed to signs, wonders, miracles? In other words, when they're accusing him and they're attacking him as being false and they want to kill him, he says, why? Because I do the works of my Father? Because I'm Torah observant? Because I know the law and you guys don't? Does that make any sense now? Could it be saying, watch me, look at me. If I step over the line and don't keep Torah, sure. But I keep it perfectly. So that's probably something that nobody's really ever really said to you, which is, could it be when he says the works of my Father is simply Torah observance? I do. Because what is the works of the Father that he wants us to do? Keep the commandments. Because they were trying to accuse him of breaking them. So he says, what have I broken? If I've broken something, accuse me. But I do my Father's work, so what's there to accuse? And he says that through these chapters a few times. So maybe the works of my Father really just talking simply about Torah observance. Okay, let's see if there's anything else real quickly. No, I think that'll do it. Why don't we go ahead then? It's 12:15. We want to end. Let's get somebody to go ahead and end us in prayer. All right, bring it around to Mark. We'll have you. Yeah, okay, Wayne's got it. Bring it around to Mark. Let Mark do it. I see more hands going up. That's better, gentlemen. Appreciate that.
Avinu Malkeinu, thank you for blessing us to come together this morning, to study in your word, to come together and grow in you, grow together in you. Thank you for blessing us as we go out from here. Thank you for safety. Thank you for more fellowship and just time to be with one another in this place. We thank you in Yeshua's authority. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Now everybody just remain in the room for a minute. We're going to wait for the live stream to end here. We'll see you guys at the next broadcast. So blessings. Have a good rest of your day.